Welcome to Conversations with Shiko. Today I'm joined by
Jockey here.
Kenya.
And we'll be talking about grief, and we'll be sharing about our feelings, our thoughts, and things that we've experienced over time. And in small, brief description, grief is a process that we go through when we lose something, and this can range from losing a job, having health problems. Another one that you
loss, like losing loved ones,
and
even relationships. When you lose people who you've had a relationship with or you've been friends with.
That's true. We lose money, we lose property. There's a lot that we lose, and when that happens, there's a process that we go through. Your mourning, it's a hard time during this period. And today we'll be going deep, very personal to our experiences, and we'll be talking about losing a loved one. So, what is grief to you?
So how I look at it personally, I've lost people throughout my life. And I think when younger, there were, the grandparent, the grandmother who died, uncles and aunties passed on. But then I think being younger, the understanding would be a little different. And how I dealt with that time was a lot of blocking. So I never spoke about it, never reacted if someone mentioned, and I tried not to even think about it for a long time. Then growing up later, of course, around 2013, 15, 2011, you get to understand now when someone dies. And 2013, with I remember the mall, the Westgate, and by then now I started thinking, actually, death is here. You can die while shopping, you can die while traveling with Ethiopian Airlines, you can die while at work with Dusit. So it started becoming a bit more real, and I started to allow myself to think about death, unlike before where I never allowed myself. And so between 2020 and 2023, now I feel that's when now grief and death now became real, because I've sat with it. There's a time that
like we're saying, it has a lot of emotion experience. How is it for you?
Yeah, so I was saying the first time it happened, I basically I had, it was hard because it was the first time grappling with mortality, grappling with death, and then seeing someone being sick for a long time, seeing them suffer. Cancer is horrible. And I think that time, how did I cope? Therapy. But it was really a dark time, I guess. I think I struggled a lot with why are we here? And it kind of also makes you feel like, what are you doing with your life? So then for me now, the struggle has been things I enjoy doing. So I love traveling, I love, doing music and stuff. And it's for the music, it's what's the point? Because, sometimes you're like, okay, yes, you become, I don't know, that girl Riri or whoever. And then so what? Then, the money, the fame, whatever, then what? So it's it makes you really think about mortality and why you're here. And so I would say the first time it happened, it was, really dark. This time around, it was dark prior to it happening. So going to ICU, being seeing my dad suffer so much, and to this day I just sometimes I just I'd be home and then I see his photo, then I just get really sad, because I'm why why does someone have to go through that? So it's not easy. So I feel the struggle now is just my why, because it's because of grief, things you used to enjoy doing, you really don't care about them anymore. And then it's you have to kind of take yourself out of that darkness so that you can function, do things. So now I decided now this time, because the first time I experienced grief and loss, I went down a really dark path. This time it's more how Njoki, for example, is saying what would your dad want you to do? So it's okay, I guess he wanted to live, so it's I get to live. And I don't know how many years I have, but if I get to live, then I need to live fully. I need to embrace life. So now I find that I'm not really scared even more. So for example, when it comes to music and performing, I really don't care. So it's I'll go have a show. I'm if you like it, you like it. If you don't, too bad. And it's so freeing, because you realize we worry about so many things which are small, and they don't really mean anything. So so what someone doesn't your song, so what someone doesn't like you or whatever, it's okay. So like now I'm in that space of embracing being like seeing my dad suffer so much, and to this day I just like, sometimes I just, I'd be home and then I see his photo, then I just get really sad, like, because I'm like, why, like, why does someone have to go through that? So it's not easy. So like I feel like the struggle now is just my why, like, because it's like because of grief, like the things you used to enjoy doing, you really don't care about them anymore. And then it's like you have to kind of take yourself out of that darkness so that you can function, do things. So like now I decided, like now this time, because the first time I experienced grief and loss, I went down a really dark path. This time it's more like how Njoki, for example, was saying, like, what would your dad want you to do? So it's like, okay, I guess he wanted to live. So it's like, I get to live. And I don't know how many years I have, but it's like, if I get to live, then I need to live fully. I need to embrace life. So now I find that I'm not really scared even more. So for example, when it comes to music and performing, I really don't care. So it's like, I'll go have a show. I'm like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, too bad. And it's so freeing because you realize like we worry about so many things which are small, and they don't really mean anything. So like, yeah, so what someone doesn't like your song, so what someone doesn't like you or whatever, it's okay. So like now I'm in that space of embracing just my true self, I guess, and figuring out my why again. Although I do find like service to others kind of brings you joy and happiness and gives you some meaning. So then now with the religion, it's now become a little bit of the reverse. So it's like, okay, finding comfort in prayer, for example, and that kind of stuff. Whereas before, I think I was moving so far away from it after the first time it happened. So I would say coping is just like one day at a time. There are good days, there are bad days. And I do find like if you let yourself like lean into the discomfort, then you can, maybe the next day won't be as bad as the day before. And just surrounding yourself with people who also understand helps. I feel like most of my friends now have lost a loved one or like have experienced grief in a different way. And I think most people in the world have experienced grief in one way or another. So yeah, so now it's just one day at a time. Maybe I might do some group therapy with my family. And also in Bermuda, we go for this yoga for grief, which has been nice. Like you do yoga first and then you sit in a circle, then you talk. And I find that it's so interesting. Before you go for the yoga, like you think you're fine. And I go for the yoga, we do the yoga. Then we sit in a circle and everyone is breaking down. And you're like, I thought I was doing okay. But it's the autopilot vibes. And and it's okay to not be okay. So now I'm trying to lean into like more healthy distractions. So like, okay, fitness, traveling, doing stuff like this, like, okay, let's start a YouTube channel. Let's like talk about life and stuff and do more things that meaningful to you, meaningful to others. So that's how I would say I'm coping, but it's just one day at a time. There are good days, there are bad days.
Yeah, it's very true. I think for me, because different days has different emotions, and some days I'm happy, even when you're saying looking at the photos, like there are fresh memories. I'm like, oh, this day it was this, and I smile. There are days where I look at them, I just cry. I'm like, yeah, I would hear your voice, and then we can't talk. And for me, I think my dad, I shared quite a lot. He was my confidant and a friend, so I was like, no, who am I going to share these stories with when I'm facing a difficult decision? And then there's a day I was going through something and actually picked my foot to call him. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was like 3 months after. Yeah, it was that I was in the middle of the road. I think I stood for a long time, and then I started, walked away. So it's difficult, but I think I also found it's nice to journal, and I will journal even in the sad days and the happy days. So I will like, yeah. So mine is usually the journal. So this is how we're going, this is how we're doing. Or sometimes if I'm on my laptop, I'll just type a nice memory, because there's this fear of forgetting. Will I forget all these things that I had? So I started writing all those things that I had with him to just keep it there. I think journaling, because I enjoy writing a lot, has been my biggest coping mechanism. And just having friends, because I also talk. So for me, sharing with people, not necessarily because I want to hear them tell me something will be okay. Just listen.
Yeah.
It really helps. It's just someone to listen to what you think. And that has been the biggest coping mechanism for me. And I still do that. I still journal. I still do all these things. And also trying to remember, like, what will he want me to do? There's something that I found difficult was that enjoyed reading, and I would pick a book, I would read. I'm still struggling, but we're getting there. And I would like, okay, let me, because he used to give me a lot of recommendations. So I'm like, this is not, put it down. But these days it's becoming better. I'm like, I think all this knowledge that he had and would love me to have it, then, do it for him, and to just keep those memories alive. So there's a lot of things that get affected when we are going through this process. Sometimes we are aware of them, sometimes we are not aware. We get to know them later. If you're aware of it later, you're able to manage. If you're not, of course, you'll work with it. So what are some of the things that has, you mentioned health before, but now you went, but what are other things that got affected?
Yeah. So, first I'd go to, you mentioned about, you're on the road and you want to call. So this time I was having a work meeting and I was sitting in Java, and the restaurant, and for some reason, I don't know what came to mind, and I was there depressed, and it was not depressed per se, but Ozuko, emotional, something crossed my mind. And yeah, it was in a restaurant, unplanned, but yeah, all that. So whenever something came, it was quite interesting. There are songs I've only listened to now, a long time, because I'd played them. So a lot of things got affected. One is I was on good traction. So COVID had affected things that time. So already there was a sense of change in life. But then because everything changes with this major change, priority energies, I don't know, I call it fluctuating. And so what I realized then is I used to be the people, 8 to 5 I'm doing this, 5 to 9 I'm doing this, 9 to 6 I'm doing this. I had energies for days. But because my energy changed, and I acknowledged that my energy changed, there are things I stopped doing, and because I couldn't. So one of it is I'd enrolled back in school, so it became, I can't even type a page, so I can work because I must work to pay the bills, but the things that they're, call it optional, I was struggling. So I stopped going to school. So that's one. And then we'd mentioned that the things that I enjoy doing. So I enjoy traveling. I enjoy going for parties. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy outdoor. I stopped doing a lot of outdoor things in that sense because I kept in. There are places and conversations and mentions I avoided as well. And so you remember, like last year was elections, and for me, elections, the person I'd talk to would be my dad. And if it was during voting, it would be like, let's do our own analysis. We can even project. And I remember when guys were politicking, I couldn't really involve because I think I would avoid, but I think it was more of this topic, deep in it, there's a bit I can do. So, and why I'm saying that is now then I avoided certain things, even reading. The person who read the most, I think, is him, and I love reading as well. So I also sort of slowed down in reading. The other thing that fell off was health. So I was on a good journey. I've always been working out a little, eating a lot of junk, but all working out. And what happened is because I stopped doing outdoors. Of course, I stopped working out. Then I ended up eating a lot of sugar, which I am, but working on it now slowly. And then what happened is I kept saying, the thing now, and the negative side on what dad want, I was like, he wouldn't want the daughter malnourished. So I kept eating and eating and eating, and just to, So health for me has fallen back, and slowly I'm getting back to it. Happily. School and any other thing that was optional. So I was very active with community service, Rotary and all. I found myself, because the energy couldn't allow me to be everywhere, it stopped. And some of the things I used to enjoy, I put them on pause. But fast forward, I think it was me responding to what was doable and what had to be done. And then this other thing not becoming a priority. They are a priority, but they could wait. And so what has happened over time now, I'm slowly, catching up with the backlog. I've signed back in school. I've signed back to school, and even though I didn't finish now, I'll finish in the future because he would have wanted me to finish school anyway. Health, being healthy, I'm slowly getting back to a routine, voluntary in events and being there for, in all spaces and being, shining in all spaces. I'm slowly now getting back to me. And yeah, so now I'm in a position where slowly, getting back to the things that mattered. But knowing that I can't fully be everywhere and doing everything and not everything is a priority, then I take it in good stride. Yeah.
That's okay. So it's definitely things that we go through. Other things, like you're saying, I think for me also the health. When I'm stressed, I eat. A lot of people it's the other way around where you don't feel like eating. I was eating everything and sweet things, fatty things. Those biscuits, I love biscuits. And that's my sugar. I would eat and I would buy. I think that's the period where also my son Quavo got to eat a lot of sweets because I was just buying sweets and buying sugar and things. And I will eat because it's an excuse, and then I'll eat and I sleep a lot. So I'm not outgoing per se, but I go out when I can. But that one stopped for even the little. If you're not seeing me in the house, sorry, we'll meet
to come visit.
Yeah, but I think with time, because things change, I'm aware of, it's a process, the things that you still have to do because you here have an opportunity to deal. I think me and God are very tight. I think we fell, then we are tight now. I think that was my biggest fallout. I think I was like, we had a sort of like a deal. He was supposed to come back home and he's not. So I was like, I'll talk to you when I'll talk to you. So I sort of shut that. I'll go to church, but I'm like, people will tell me, I'm like, okay. I think also people praying for us helps. So I was okay, but I was like, just thinking. So it affected a lot of things. Just being around people, conversations, you really try not to talk about sad things. It's been crazy. But what I can say is just because I'm aware, then I respond to the situation a little bit better and try to be more positive. And so how has it any other thing for you that got affected and how you dealing with that?
I mean, I think for me, I just leaned into, so my dad passed away in October. So then, I don't know, work was crazy and toxic. And I guess, you lean into work. And then after that, December was all the celebrations, the office parties. I think I really leaned into that to the extent that some of my friends are like, are you really grieving? Because you're like, well, I think it's just a distraction. So it's you go out, party after party. So now I'm at a place where now I'm like, okay, I want for myself just to lean into more positive distractions. So, I'm going to do a gym challenge when I go back to Bermuda. It's a summer shred program. It's intense. So it's I want to do stuff that's okay. And then I'm also doing an alcohol cleanse. So I'm not drinking for the next 6 months. So I'm trying to just, like I said, do radical things, but things that would improve my life as opposed to make my life worse. Because even the health thing, I would say, December, with all the parties and the Christmas stuff, adding weight, then you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Then it just makes you feel bad. So I think exercise and fitness, I think I want to lean more into that because I feel like it'll help my mental health as well, endorphins and stuff. And then I think just accepting to not be okay, because I think the more you fight it, the more it lingers. And also just crying. I think crying is really good. Crying when you can, crying. Even if you're in some public place, the most weird place I think I cried was at our office Christmas party, for the whole company. The HR, she lost her sibling last year as well. And then, those people just ask you how you are. And then she really genuinely, cares and stuff. And the two of us just end up crying together at the Christmas party. And there's all this music and stuff. And then she's like, to stop crying. We need to stop crying, so that she's like, I will get fired for this. I'm like, no, it's fine. So accepting that there'll be highs and lows, and just leaning into it, because I think if you don't process the feelings, like, you just go down. And I've been in the dark side, so I don't want to be in the dark side anymore. I want to try accept the bad feelings and the loss, and then the other part is just, our mortality, and that we will die, and then the more people you have in your life also, oh my gosh, they will also die. So it's sad, but
crazy.
It's really sad, but then I don't know. It's okay, one day at a time.
Yeah, it's true. So with the experience, that there are certain things that I've come to understand. I've learned from different people, because even the conversations that I've had, share with me as well. There are things that I get to understand from different people, and sort of try to implement. So I'll say, just knowing that it's part of the process, and everyone sort of goes through this journey. It has helped me, because everyone is grieving something. There's quite a lot. So I think it has helped me a lot in moving forward. And so I think with that, is there anything that you've known as through this journey that you'd like to share with us?
No, I think Kenya, what you mentioned about mortality becoming real, so gotten quite a lot of new perspectives.
Yeah.
And so I could pick out 3 things around perspective. So perspective around death is like, life is short, sun keeps rising, but when you die, possibly you'll reconnect with those that have gone before you. So that's one. And then we'll all die. Live fearlessly. Live now. Live now. Live the moment. And then you could die. The other person could die. Love everyone. Tell them you love them. Do everything you need to do, but do it today to the best extent. So living right by me, I say living right by my God, and just living right like as if it's the last day in that sense, because again, so the new perspectives around what death could be and life, and also priorities. What happens is a little bit of priority shift. Does not mean things don't matter, but it's just that they can matter differently at different times. And being kind to self and also to others. You talked about someone somewhere is going through something, and you are going through something, and you're used to, I'm such a planner where, with my to-do list, and my to-do list would go not checked. And now I've learned to be, it's okay, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. You don't know what they're going through, and just be there for people. And what has happened, because I've gotten to relieve many moments through deaths that have come after, so you relieve, and the pain is the same, and sometimes it's difficult as if you're going through. Just be there, show up in the little way you can, but speaking up is also so important, and acknowledging you're not okay. So you tell your family, I'm not okay. You tell your friends, and those who understand, they will support you in whatever way that would be, or they let you be. So being able to say, I'm not okay, or today I don't feel okay, and letting people know also, because you've shifted. So before, they'd expect that you're the party planner, so you can plan and say, this time, sorry, I'm not in a position to plan. I could before I could, but now I'm not. So just acknowledging. What I've said, perspectives shifting, being able to acknowledge you're not okay, and communicating the same to those around you, and being kind to yourself, so that the expectations also align. But most importantly, with the realization that, do I have another 30 or 35 or 36 years, here? What do I want? How do I want to live? And with that, then, what I'm finding myself now doing is all the things I need to do, I need to do them now in a different way, so that should it be a 5 years, it's okay. Should it be 10 years, it's okay. So using the reality of the end of life to not be frightened and not do anything, but to say, because that is there, then today I need to make sure I live it the best way. And for me, for my dad, actually the most important was when I listen to what people say, when I reflect back on things, when I read things, I'm like, whoa, this man lived. And if he lived and he got to where he was, I also need to live and get to where I need to be. And with that, then with the pain, with the everyday pain, it's now growing with the pain. So I'm looking at which projects are passion projects, so positive things I can get myself into. How best can I avoid certain things where avoidable in terms of health? How best can I achieve whatever I need to achieve? And how can I show up in some of the characters I borrowed, showing up, loving people, supporting people, embracing that in my everyday. And then some of the things that maybe I shouldn't do because, like an example, be healthy to the best way. Health goes whatever way, but what can you do? And so just consolidating, I call it the life before, and now the life after. And I hope with time, the new perspective of, being intentional, and also the energy that you can have, because the energy that you can have given everything. I feel like just using all that experience to continue dealing by sharing with everyone, but also preparing yourself and being your amazing self in the best way you can, given everything. So
that helps you like live, because I think if you try to be happy and say, oh, I have to be happy, like what's going on, like I don't like these feelings, I think you get stuck. And then actually that's where the depression creeps in, and then you're like, okay, why am I even bothering? Like, this life is just miserable or cruel or whatever. But again, like I said, it has positives as well. So yeah, so even me now, I think leaning into the light, I would say, and leaning into the discomfort of the unfamiliar feelings which will come and go when they decide to come. And I think grief is a load that you just carry with you for life, and maybe the load gets a little bit lighter with time. Not really time, but more like the more you process it. But I think it's accepting that it's going to be there. And sometimes people don't understand. They're like, oh, I mean, like they might say, oh, it's been 10 years. Let's say if you lost something 10 years ago, and they're like, why are you still like crying about this? It's okay. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't think there's any timeline for grief. It's forever.
And I think mainly it's, learning to cope better, not necessarily. So, and, dancing with the broken limb, literally the way they say, like, it's not that you are dancing because your limbs are there, but it's because you have one broken, but you
accept
you
it.
can, yes. I think
and then and then I think the last thing is embracing death and our mortality. I think my mom was telling me, like, we just have to accept it. We never think about it though. Thinking about it makes you really, especially I think if you're religious, like, I feel like people use religion as a way to not think about these difficult things. I would say, like, challenge yourself even if you're religious, like, so I think accepting death,
and talking about it, I think we've
accepting your mortality, accepting you don't know how much time you have, you don't know who, and then sadly the more people you have in your life, the more loss. But I mean also the more joy, because you have to look at both sides of the coin. So embrace the good times and accept. Nowadays I be like water, literally go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
Yeah.
That's thank you so much for sharing. Grief, like you've had, it's different emotions, different feelings, different coping mechanism for different people. I think it's very important to, as you're going through this process, and it's different. Could be you've lost a loved one, could be a job, it could be your health or someone else's health, not necessarily yours, could be a child. And I think it's very important to remember that you allow yourself to go through the process, deal however you have to deal. If you're journaling, if you have to go outside, if you need to talk to people, if you want to cry it out, if you need to take a break from work, just do it. It's very important. And then to also, like what Njoki and Kina are saying, to look for positive ways to deal. Because sometimes you can forget and now go, the dark way, you start doing things probably you've never even tried, and you forget yourself. By the time you're realizing, oh, how did I get there? It's probably not too late, but it will take time to get you to where you're supposed to be. So yeah, I will say take care of yourself. Remember to live, take a day at a time. Be yourself, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you as well. And yeah, talk about it. if you feel like you want to share whatever, share with us. Yeah, and that's it for today.
Smiling in the memories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Bye.
Adios. Yeah.